Hello class, I'd like to give you a tutorial on using the pre-built layouts in Dreamweaver. So over the next few weeks of class, I'll start introducing some of the new things in Dreamweaver we haven't covered yet, and that would include things like templates, things that would might help your site and your design, but not something that you'll use every time. So the pre-built layouts and the templates, those are interesting to look at, but they're kind of hard to customize and change around the CSS. So they could help you out, for a quick website, but most of the time you'll be doing your own layouts. And for the projects, I'll specify in the directions, whether or not I would like you to use these pre-built layouts. So let's check these out. This will be a pretty quick tutorial because I mainly just want to introduce the topic and show you how to develop these sites, and then you can check it out on your own. So I'm going to do a file new, and I'm going to check out all the options. Now we haven't looked very much at all these different options available for you. There are a lot, so these are some of the things that we're going to cover in the next couple weeks. We mainly just focus on HTML, and then we do HTML5. Now there are other options underneath the HTML. This is what we're doing in the tutorial today. Now, let's see, the layouts themselves in Dreamweaver, I believe, are the XHTML 1.0, so the code might be a little bit different. You can see there's a couple updated HTML5 tutorials, so that's all of the CSS designs. Now they do also have some templates, which is something totally different than the pre-built layouts, than the fixed layouts. So we will talk about templates. You may use those from time to time if you have a large website. Then there's a lot of options for programming languages on here. And then on the left-hand side, there's some more options, including like the fluid grid layout, which we will definitely look into the fluid grid layout. It's something new in HTML5 and also new in Dreamweaver CS6. So if you don't have CS6, you won't see this. I'm probably not going to require a project on this, but it's a good thing to look at. So, and a nice new feature of CS6. But back to what we're talking about in this tutorial: blank page, and then you can check out these columns. Now they're pretty much what you would expect. It's kind of like what we've been building from scratch, but just pre-built for you. Now one difference is that they're going to use a lot more of the class styles by default, whereas we're using the IDs and then applied to the separate division tags. So they work the same way as the way I've been teaching you to develop it. It's just that they use more of the class styles. So if you're really not familiar with or not as up to date on the CSS as you would like to be, you may be using Dreamweaver to write it, but you may not know exactly what's going on. It would be worth your time to research and spend a little more time on what a class is, ID, all of that. But I'm assuming that you know what those differences are. So if I click on these layouts, I can see basically what I'm getting. So for example, there's like one column. You may have to try these out to see exactly what they do, but it tells you. So there's one column, one centered column, and the width is in a %. Liquid columns, those can sometimes work, but sometimes they stretch out too far. The fixed columns, they're pretty much what they sound like. And there's a kind of a fancy one. There's a 3-column with a header and footer. So header at the top, footer at the bottom, 1, 2, 3. That's a popular look for a website. And there's a 3-column liquid, so that would be one that stretches out across the screen. So let's just pick one of these that's a little bit simpler maybe. There's a traditional website right there, a 2-column fix with a left sidebar. Check out the document type, HTML5, and then there's where do you put the layout CSS. Either add it to the head or create the new file, or you can link to an existing file. So what you would do, again, I would recommend, is create the new file and then click create. And you can save this as the default, or you can call it styles. Make sure it's in your site. Click save. Okay, and this is the code, but let's check out the design. It looks pretty much like what you would expect. It's a Dreamweaver template. Let me drop this down so you can see it a little bit better. I'll take it to... So that's what the site looks like. So It has some places over here for your links. Those are kind of like the division tags, but I don't think they use division tags there. Some of them they do though. This is a division tag on the right, and then on the left there's a division tag. So just two division tags, and then you might want to check out and see kind of how these are applied. I think these are class navigation styles over here, so that makes that look kind of like what you see right here with the green and the separate lines. If you want to check it out, preview it in browser, do a file preview in browser. Okay, we'll check it out in Chrome. And prompts me to save it, so I'll just call it CSS layout. And there's what it looks like. So nice option for a website, just a little bit difficult to customize sometimes, but it does have some built-in rollovers for you if you do like that look. You know, it is, most of these templates are very sort of business oriented, you know, very simple, very clean, which is good, but not very fancy, you know, and you really have to work to get some images in here from Photoshop or Fireworks to improve the design of the site. So let's check a little bit about this and see how it's built. So CSS styles, let's see, you'll see a lot of the things you're familiar with already. Tags that apply to the header, links on here. Okay, and then you're going to see some of the class styles that I was talking about. So for example, there's the navigation on here. Okay, and there's content. So how do you tell what the different styles are? We'll just click so that you can see what's been applied. So for example, if I take this big content area and I put my mouse either on the corner over on the right hand side or the left hand side, I should be able to isolate this area. You can also go to the code if you find it hard to select that, and then check out what's been applied. You're either probably going to see a division tag or a class. Looks like this entire site is developed with these classes which work the same way as far as the layout goes, but it's just applied as a class instead of an ID to a division tag. So, but they're still going to be division tags. It's just you can see a class on there instead. So that's called content. So if I double click on content, I can see what they have put on here. So for example, there's the background color of that, and if you were to change that, you can see it changes the background color of that particular area. So let's check out the menu next over here so you can kind of see how they built that. So you're probably going to see that this whole left area is in its own division tag, and it may have a class on it. Looks like it may be called sidebar 1. Okay, so you can kind of click around to find that. So sidebar 1 is going to give you the overall left hand column. So if you're going to look for that, you should be able to find a dot sidebar 1. Okay, so if I double click dot sidebar 1 and I check out box, that's where I get the width of that particular column. Okay, now how did they build this little menu right here? Well, actually I think what they did was just to apply some CSS to an unordered list. So if I go back to the code, go up towards the top here, here are the links, and you can see, well, you'll see the division tag for container. Again, it's a class instead of an ID, and all that means is that instead of using ID and then using the hashtag to define that particular ID, they're using a class, and then you would define it with a dot in front of it instead of a hashtag. But other than that, it's going to work the same way. So you'll see a lot of these in the pre-built Dreamweaver layouts. So here's class container, then you'll see the sidebar, and then you'll see the navigation. So when you're looking for this, you'll look for ul.nav, and then you'll find some of the features of this particular nav bar. Okay, if you scroll on down, then you'll see the division tag for content. Okay, and then a couple of the closed division tags. This would close the content division tag, this would close the container. You can see end content and container. So it kind of tells you what they're doing here with the sidebar and with the links on here. So if you did want to go check out the navigation, I'll come back to design, and you know, you see that these all have at least the nav class applied to them. And in addition, one thing you want to make a note of is they are links. There's a hashtag in there, so technically that means they are a link, even though they don't go anywhere. So you want to check your CSS or the CSS that Dreamweaver has developed for you and see what has the A applied to it within this navigation tag. So you'll see a ul.nav, and then you'll see the A hover, and then active, a couple different tags like that. That's usually where you're going to find the style of your navigation bar. So if I double click on that and then go to background, you'll probably see, you can see here's the green color. So if I click on that, or I'll change that to like a gray and apply it. Okay, that may be the hover that I just changed. We'll see that in just a second. Let's click OK. Let's do a file preview in browser. Yeah, and you can see that that actually changed that rollover to a gray. Okay, how would you find the actual navigation? It's probably going to be this first one here, like the actual color. Okay, and you can see that changed the color. So they had theirs set to a green color. And then the next one on here, that's going to be the little rollover, so the background. So if I change that to something completely different, okay, and then preview it one more time in my browser. Okay, it looks like that. I refreshed it. Anytime you preview and it does not pick up changes, just refresh it and it should change it. So you can see that it takes a little bit of work to start to get in here and change around the design, because it's already developed for you. You know, it's different than developing it from scratch. So it can possibly work for you if you don't have as much of a visual layout, like if you haven't developed a template, or I mean not a template, but a mock-up in Photoshop, and you're ready to just build sort of a business, simple, basic website. You know, these might work for you. Now, one thing I'll mention is that if I do File New, the more complicated you get with these designs on here, then the more CSS code you're going to have to work through. So, for example, the 3-column liquid with a header and a footer, and I'll create that. You can see that this one has a lot to it already, and you can check out the code. So there's a lot of CSS to a site like that. It may or may not work for you. I'll preview it really quickly here. Okay, and you can see this one is one that sort of has this liquid approach. That's one that I would really not recommend using, because the larger your monitor gets, you know, the stranger the site's going to start looking. I think there is a point where it doesn't keep stretching out, but anyway, it's something to consider, you know, if you want that liquid approach to stretch out across the screen. So that's really it for this tutorial. Mainly just wanted to introduce you to those pre-built layouts and try to help you dissect the code a little bit so you can see how they've been built, and hopefully you can kind of take it from here and practice a little bit on your own with these layouts. And I probably will post a homework or a small project on the pre-built layouts. I may not do a major project though, because I like you to build your layouts from scratch, because that's really the best way to learn it. So that's it for this tutorial.